Hey, Gulf Coast Realtor friends, allow me to rant about hurricane season for a moment. We talked about hurricane season at my sales meeting this week, and everybody's like, oh, you always start talking about it, right after it starts on June 1st, and, it's not that big of a deal. We don't have to worry about it. Hey, guess what? There's a storm approaching the Gulf. My agents live in and primarily service Brazoria County, Matagorda County, and Galveston County, all three coastal counties, and things can get a little nuts when there's a storm approaching. And it's not like when you were a teenager or a young adult and you didn't have like kids and dogs and a business that you own and you got the hurricane. That's when you just get a surprise few days off and you don't have to go to work because everything's closed. But it's not that big of a deal because you're a renter, and it's not a big deal to pick up and move. And when you're an adult and you do have kids and or dogs and you own the business that is going to be closed and possibly a property, it's less fun. It's not a hurricane. So what I always tell agents at the beginning of hurricane season is, and I believe it's June through November of all things, for listing agents, get a plan together with your sellers that if there's a storm approaching, we have a plan for the sign, because you do not want your sign with your sign writer on it that might have your phone number and your face on it flying through a windshield or through somebody's front window. That's not great. You don't want your sign to be a projectile. Number two thing is, we have about 80, somewhere between 80 and 90 listings right now. That's almost $7,500 worth of signs that we're going to lose some anytime a storm comes through here. So we need to get them all picked up. What about our our absentee owners? So we can always call our sellers and say, hey, put the sign in the garage or in the house. I would say 30% of our listings are not owner occupied, and so that means I have to tell agents, go around and pick up your signs, and that's not a lot of fun. What about our listings with vacant listings with screen enclosures, listings with pools, listings with generators? When we have a storm come through, it wreaks havoc on your pools because of the deluge of water. If the power goes out, the pump may not be running, generators may or may not come on. The pool is definitely going to be full of crap and debris, and it takes forever to get them back up and running. The issue becomes, if we have stuff pending, then we've got to put on the brakes for a second. We got to get everything back up to par if we had a storm come through. Sometimes if we're at a disaster area by the governor, then appraisers have got to come out and re-inspect and say, hey, yeah, the home is still standing. That's a whole thing. The other thing is, once your storm, a named storm, crosses a certain latitude and longitude in the Gulf of Mexico, insurers will stop binding insurance policies, which means now we can't close. So our poor sellers and buyers are hanging out waiting for the storm to pass through and everything to pick back up and see what happens with that. Next thing in is probably the biggest one, besides worrying about our 80 listings out here and our sellers that are not here, and what are their expectations as far as we go that they need us to help with on their properties. We have our own properties, of course. Next thing is, I have 3 agents that live at the beach, and I have another 15 probably that live on a river, creek, canal, or lake. And so, worried about my agents, worried about their properties. Some that live in places that don't flood, but maybe the access floods. Maybe they are typically out of power for a long time after a storm. And it doesn't have to be a hurricane that comes through when you're 12 miles from the damn Gulf of Mexico. A tropical depression that dumps a lot of rain, or a tropical storm that has a lot of wind, is just, we're going to lose power. There's going to be trees down, fences, roofs, trees and pools, trees on houses. And then, it's the trees that take out the power lines. That we'll have some people that are out of power for a couple weeks sometimes, and that could include some of our listings. It definitely would include some of my agents who live out, in out of city limits. So it's just a whole thing. And the first thing we do after a hurricane is, number one, I get a hurricane or a tropical storm or even a freeze. And we've had, of 10 years that I've been leading a real estate office, we've had five, it's either 5 or 6 major weather events. With all of the above, plus we had that one big freeze, where, again, if we've got vacant properties, then we're out checking on pool pumps. We may be out, doing a walkthrough of every property if no one lives there, to see, you know, is the house okay? Do they have power? Do we need to get the pool service? Do we have a fence down? It's just, but the first thing after, and it's always at night, I don't know why, when a storm comes through, and then the first thing in the morning is getting all my agents to check in via the Facebook group or text and say, hey, we're okay. Who needs what? Who doesn't have power? Who does have power? Who needs groceries? Who needs people to come to their house and cut up limbs or drag stuff to the curb? And it is a whole thing. That is why I cannot stand hurricane season. And I hate to be negative, but I'm gonna use the H word. I hate hurricane season. It is the worst. And it can go. Okay, bye.